as a contractor, you're specialized in a very specific domain, and you want to work in a specific way. What does how does me say I'm the CEO of a company? How do I make your job a nightmare? Like, what does a good client and a bad client look like?
And you're saying as a contractor?
Well, yeah. If I'm the CEO of a company and you're a contractor, who do you want to work with? Like, and who empowers you to do the best job? Like, or what can I do to make your life a nightmare?
Yeah. Well, I guess
probably just what we talked about, right? Like changing the scope. Hey, can you do this, and this as well?
That's a great place to start, to be honest. Right off the bat, changing a scope and changing what, my responsibilities if I was the contractor. That's step one to start off on the bad foot. There's a number of different things. If, the way you look at it is if you're bringing in a contractor, you're the CEO, you're bringing in a contractor. I'm supposed to be the specialized person, right? That's why you're paying probably pretty top dollar an hour for me. So if I'm presenting you with solutions or, things that certain steps where you've done this wrong or, things of that nature, but you're not listening to me or you don't, heed any sort of my advice, whatever the case, then that's a whole nother thing, right? I'll just sit here for weeks beating my head up against the wall saying, well, I know this is the right solution for you or the best solution for you. But if you don't want to do it, what good are we doing? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we engaged right now? Sure. There is absolutely a certain level of me as a contractor sitting down and listening to where you guys are, what you guys have done and trying to meet you guys in the middle. That's where the best relationships, I think, work, of that certain give and take. Because at the end of the day, organizations, they have their guidelines and certain things that they have to follow. Right.
Right.
And as a contractor, I have to meet you guys, where you are. So, but yeah, I guess
you gotta have a game plan, right?
There's got to be a total game plan. And that's, a big thing that, here at Avigate that we do is, before we do anything at all, we probably have 2, 3, maybe even 4 audits. And those audits, yeah.
Sounds like that's like the best word ever, right? Audit.
Oh, yeah, it is. And
I love audits.
I know. And it's so often overlooked though. A lot of agencies, a lot of contractors, they just go in, they might do one audit and then they'll say, okay, well, this is the best solution. Well, we look at everything. We look at your team. We look at, the data from years ago. What sort of documentation process do you guys have in place? Oftentimes than not, there's none. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, digital marketing specialist just left. Okay, well, where's your documentation? What have you guys been doing? Well, we don't have any. Okay, well, tough place to start when you don't have any, right? How am I supposed to know, or how are we supposed to know, what you guys have been doing? But, it's all those audits that give us a really granular look at what you guys have been doing. And then from there, we'll then talk about solutions. But yeah, it's not until about 3 or 4 audits that, we present anything that we might be able to help with.
Gotcha. So you do a comprehensive audit of all the kind of most important aspects of a digital marketing strategy, and then kind of get a game plan from there. You're not just saying, you're not just prescribing the same solution for everybody.
No, not at all. Yeah. Who's responsible for content, right? What team is responsible for content? What team is, or who is responsible for, the creation or the development? How and when are you guys meeting, right? How often, everything under the sun, we look at, in order for us to, come up with our findings, right? I think that's a big thing for us before we present any sort of solution to our clients.
Yeah, because that's a lot of work. Because I mean, man, it would be a whole lot easier if you just said, "Hey, this is what you need to do," and me as a CEO, I say, "Hey, this is what I need," and then if you just give me an answer, like that's the easy way, right? That's like you go to a mechanic and they say, "Hey, you need this," right? And you just trust them, right? Rather when you go to when you go to a good mechanic and they're like, okay, they take you into the garage, they show you the stuff, and they like walk you through, so they let you know that they're fixing the right thing.
Absolutely. Right? This isn't always the case, right? Clearly, it's not always the case, because if you make a good hire full time, you probably made that hire because you knew that they were going to ask why. I think that's so overlooked, and a big thing that we stress here at Avigate as an agency, because we have quite a few clients that we work with day in and day out.
Sure.
Obviously, we're always looking for new and interesting and exciting work, but at the same time, we're not necessarily afraid to say, "Hey, this doesn't really line up with what we want to do," right? Certainly. On these initial calls, we ask why, and we'll continue asking why and why and why, right? Yeah. Instead of just being that kind of yes guy or yes man. Because that's where these clients they get themselves in a bind. They'll pay $175, $250, $300 an hour for we'll call it a yes man, and then a year from now, after their implementation or solution is putting them in the same space, they'll reach out to us.
Okay, all right. So you talked about yes men. So how do you know when you're getting yes manned? What, like, if this is maybe I'm a new CEO of a place, or I'm the new head of marketing, and I need to retool this aspect.
Yeah.
How do you know when you're getting yes manned?
I think a good way to look at it is if you're that that director or CEO and you're getting frustrated in terms with your agency or whoever because they're not doing what you're asking. If you're getting to that frustration level, then you know that you're probably not getting yes manned. On the other side, I guess to answer your question, if the agency is just doing what you're asking, you're probably getting yes manned.
Okay, so if there's no pushback, if there's no why,
right? Yeah,
okay.
Ask why.
It's
a 3-letter word that people don't ask. Especially question. On the sales side. Yeah, it is. It's a great. It's arguably the greatest question, and the most simple question. From our standpoint, definitely from sales on my standpoint. Hey, we want to do X, Y, Z. Well, why do you want to do that?
No snap.
And just keep going, right? Just keep asking. Sometimes Steve and I joke about it. We'll keep asking until it gets awkward. and the clients.
So if you feel awkward, you're in a good.
You're in a great spot. Yeah, right. Exactly. Keep asking why until it's awkward.
All right, that's good advice. Keep asking why until it's awkward. Earlier when we were talking about this, we kind of came up with a good analogy, because we talked about having a plan. We talked about having a playbook. Sometimes through this series of questions of asking why, it's almost like you're developing kind of like this strategy, and it's similar to everybody's favorite sport, kind of football, right? So there was this kind of like dynamic of the client is kind of like the football coach, and can help people understand if maybe they're a little confused. A helpful analogy is always a nice thing.
Well, it's funny because this is a new analogy to us too, right? When we were talking about it, it kind of just popped up and it all made sense.
Emerged.
But but it is, and there's an argument for it, but when we go into a client, right, the head coach is obviously going to be that stakeholder or that hiring manager, if you will. They are the one ultimately calling the shots. And we know that, right? But we want to work with them as, maybe that assistant head coach to develop a strategy or solution, ultimately to, win them the game or get to the goal that they're looking for, right?
Right.
Those things are going just like in football, you have to adapt, right? So you can have a playbook and a strategy, but the data, what we had said, the data is kind of your defense that you have to read, right?
So why is data the defense?
It tells you what's working and what's not. There's it's an interesting way to look at it, but say we have these solutions that we think are right, then we implement those solutions, we test those solutions, especially in the email universe, but our click-through rates or whatever the case are down, right? We have to read that data to understand, how we have to adapt. Okay. Well, in football, for instance, as they always say there's two halves, right? The best coaches are the ones that can make halftime adjustments. So that's a big thing with the data, right? If you can make those adjustments and read that, then I think you'll be in a pretty good place.
Interesting. So, and then obviously it all goes back to that data, all goes back to being organized, which goes back to the audit, right?
Yeah.
Having the audit, having the data, asking the why, all kind of sets you up to have this playbook that enables you to make adjustments that are accurate and get you the win. Get you the W.
Definitely. Get you the W. And I mean, we have things. Well, I was just saying a little plug here for Avigate, but we have solutions that are, just completely, they're free. And, we'll help you obviously in terms of setting it up, but so often overlooked. And I know I use that phrase quite frequently on this podcast, but it's so true. It's something as simple as setting up a spreadsheet for an email calendar and tracking your send outs, where you're at in the process. And I can't tell you how many times we go into, clients or, Salesforce Marketing Cloud org or whatever ESP, that they're using. And there's nothing like that, right? They're like, well, we don't have a calendar. Yeah. I mean, it's a simple solution. It just goes back to the very, very beginning, right? Okay. Let's put the nuts and bolts of this together. We're just going to start with an email calendar. Right. It seems crazy. And you're like, well, but yeah, you're tracking everything, where it's at in the process, highly customizable to based on what they want. But a very simple solution that I think can set email teams up for the long run.
All right. So Troy, we've talked a lot about strategy, a lot about, what to do, what not to do, but how about tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get involved in all of this email marketing, strategy, recruiting business?
So can confidently say I never knew or never thought that I would, be in email marketing. But so before Avigate, I used to work for, one of the biggest, if not the biggest specialized recruitment agency in, the world, Frank Recruitment Group. In terms of specialization, I started on Salesforce as a contract recruiter. And that's ultimately how I met Stephen Douglas, who's, obviously, as you know, the founder of Avigate. He was my go-to consultant for all things Marketing Cloud. Right. And anytime a project came up, I just knew that I could give him a call. He had his guidelines in terms of what he wanted out of a project. And I always tried my best to meet those. But yeah, I mean, that's how we met. I knew him for, honestly, probably about 3-4 years, pretty much the whole time I was at Mason Frank. And, ultimately we built a really good relationship based on what he's looking for, what I'm looking for. And, as he has said, he recruited the recruiter. It's awesome. I love working for Avigate. I got to stay in a very similar space. I didn't focus too much on email marketing, mainly on the CRM side of things at, Mason Frank, but easy transition, right? In terms of the ecosystem.
Right.
Not as easy transition because I'm figuring out a whole mess of things about email and digital marketing, that I had no clue about. But yeah, I mean, that's how I got to Avigate. And, here we are a year into the business and, absolutely loving it.
Well, that's cool, man. That's love that story. Recruiting the recruiter.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think a big thing for it, and I know Steve and I have talked about it, a recruiter's job oftentimes is understanding the market almost just as much as they're understanding, even the candidate pool or the technicalities of a job description, right? So there's a whole level of educating, both the clients and the candidates, right? And educating them on what the market dictates, because that's what it is. The market dictates this, right?
Right.
So, I always found that, I think, as the most exciting part about recruitment, honestly, was being able to say, hey, look, like, I know this is what you're looking for, right? But you're not going to find that.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. And it's just you have to be upfront with them. Or, hey, look, if you can't budge from that number, or if you can't budge from, whatever the case. Okay.
So it's like, is it like, I'm looking for a senior analyst and I want to pay them $60,000 a year? Is it something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And so many other things too. Right. But, prime examples, absolutely prime examples of, if you're going to put senior, I think I actually just posted something on LinkedIn about this. If you're going to put senior in front of any job title and then have a, minimum of 35K or, to a maximum of 62K, you're probably going to be looking for quite some time. And, yeah, I'll talk to you again in a year. Right. So yeah, you run into it a lot, but or the other big thing nowadays, right, is remote. And I had, done this all prior to COVID, when I was still recruiting. I would ask clients, why can't you offer remote? Never really had a good answer, right? The biggest one that I ran into, I worked a lot in the finance industry, was obviously all the regulations of having remote computers and things like that.
Yeah. Seems like that's all taken care of now. I mean, especially like the pandemic definitely accelerated all those things.
Absolutely. And even prior to COVID, they were all tracked and had the securities in place to have a remote computer. It was just something that they wanted
VPN,
to throw out there.
Yeah, all that. Exactly. I mean,
but I used to say to clients, okay, well, you want a senior developer, and you want them at, let's just say, to make it easy, $100 an hour. Well, in New York City, if you want a senior developer, you're going to end up paying $140 an hour. But why don't you look in Texas? Texas has a great talent pool. They're working from a state that has no state income tax. So they're willing to go down on their rates, and you get as good, if not better, talent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And every time I brought that up, they were like, yeah, exactly. They'd say the same thing you said. Well, that's a good point. Well, of course it is, right? Like, that's the day and age that we live in. Remote work is here. There's no reason why we shouldn't have it.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good point. Cause I mean, but you don't know what you don't know. And what you don't know most of the times are the different options, right? There's a multiplicity of options, especially in today's world, right? The internet has created so many different things. It's hard to even fathom the depth of options. There's just so many.
Right.
But, when you work with a specialist, whether it's on the recruiting side, whether it's on the digital marketing strategy side, you're definitely going to find all these other possibilities that probably are better.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to your point, Jordan, about, how clients and CEOs or hiring managers, where they want to find the most for the least. Well, starting off remote as an option, that's a good place to start, right? You'll open up your talent pool. You're not looking in one city or one state or, whatever the case.
Right.
and you have a much better chance at finding more for less. Now, I'm not condoning that by any stretch.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I'm not condoning that by any stretch, because I don't, we see it all the time of people on internal teams being spread too thin, wearing too many hats. So, make sure that's in your budget, for sure. Hire a few people,
have a budget, but make sure it's the right budget.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, cool, man. I think we covered a lot of ground today. Definitely some good points, tips for anybody out there that's looking to retool, make a rehire, or kind of expand their, digital marketing operation, whether it's email, other strategy. Any last bits of advice for those people that are in one of these situations that you'd give to them?
Yeah, definitely.
How can they reach you if they want to chat with Troy about their strategy, hiring, all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the best option is definitely just reaching out on LinkedIn. From LinkedIn, there,
cool.
Yeah, LinkedIn for now, and then obviously we can exchange information. I'm more than happy to set up times to speak. My suggestion, the biggest thing is, we live, especially in the email universe, which we work in a lot. We live in a high content, constant content society, right? Whether it's for good or for worse, that's up for you to debate.
Just how it is now.
That's how it is. On the client side of things, I can personally say it because I'm a consumer, but I also work in the email space. It's not going to kill me. I might not even notice if I don't get an email today from your company, right? I might not even notice that I don't get an email for a week from your company.
Right.
So with that being said, my biggest thing is just take a step back. If you guys are in a constant, hamster wheel of just keeping up with content, but not actually getting the results that you guys are looking for, take a step back. And understand what you're working with. What's your team look like? Is everyone, I'll just use the term happy, right? Is everyone happy? Is everyone being able to get the work done, but also still have personal lives, whatever the case? Or are they working after hours? Are they working till 12, 1 o'clock? And then your QA is all sorts of screwed up, right?
Oh, man.
Yeah, there's a number of things, but, look at your team, kind of sit down with them. See how they're feeling. Look at your process. If your team's not happy, if someone leaves, do you have the documentation for it? Right. Mm-hmm. So there's a number of things, but yeah, just take a step back, take a breather. You use your agencies, use your specialists, for sure. They're the ones that, have the hours under their belt, to ultimately lead you to the finish line. But yeah, we're so caught up in content these days that we just feel like we have to keep up. And, from there, we're not hitting, we're not hitting the goals that we want to see. And that's a big reason of just being reactive instead of proactive.
Gotcha. Yeah. Reactive is a killer. Taking some time to make intelligent choices sounds like the best option.
Get off the hamster wheel.
Get off that hamster wheel. You don't want to be a hamster. I don't want to be a hamster.
I don't want to be a hamster either.
No hamsters here. This has been the E.M.U podcast. Troy, thanks so much for chatting with us and kind of taking us through the ups and downs, pros and cons of this crazy world of recruiting and working with contractors. It's been great.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon and have a good one, man.
Absolutely. You as well.
All right. See you later.